Formula 1 returns this weekend with the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix at Imola. The first race of the European leg of the season is always an exciting one for fans of the technical side of Formula 1, with upgrades expected for most, if not all of the teams this weekend. This season, the first European race is also the first of a triple header, meaning that those upgrades are going to be put through their paces pretty quickly. Today, I'm going to check out the new upgrades that are coming for this weekend, and what it might do to the competitive order, so don't go anywhere. Formula 1 heads to the iconic Imola circuit this weekend for the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix and the start of a European triple header, which could dictate the path of the title race. After making it 4 wins out of the opening 6 races last time out in Miami, Oscar Piastri holds a 16-point advantage over his McLaren teammate Lando Norris in the Drivers' Championship. They're then followed by Red Bull's Max Verstappen, who is 32 points adrift of the Australian, and Mercedes' George Russell, who is 38 points back. McLaren were utterly dominant in race trim a couple of weekends ago, as they won by more than half a minute. And, should that continue, the Drivers' Championship is going to pretty quickly become a 2-car race. The rest of the grid and the drivers definitely don't want them to run away with it though. As well as a wide range of upgrades coming this weekend. There's also going to be a change in technical regulations coming at the Spanish Grand Prix, which is the 3rd race in this triple header. The FIA are going to be tightening up their tests on flexible bodywork, and if you believe what Christian Horner says, then McLaren are definitely going to be punished, though at the moment they're denying they're going to have to change anything. The reason the start of the European leg is a place where we first see the big upgrade packages being fitted is because of how close the races are to the team's factories. At the moment, all 10 teams on the grid have factories based in Europe, and it just makes bringing the parts much simpler for them. The teams generally want to avoid bringing parts to Monaco as well, which is the 2nd race in this triple header, because it's a bit of an outlier of a circuit, and there's also a pretty decent chance of cars getting damage. Therefore, you're going to see a lot of teams bringing parts to Imola this weekend. Ferrari already brought a new floor to the Bahrain Grand Prix back in April, and Verstappen ran a revised floor in Miami. However, neither of those upgrades appear to make that much of a dent into the deficit that both teams have to McLaren at the moment. Red Bull in particular are going to be hoping that their upgrades have a pretty massive impact on the performance of their car because they are well off the standards that they set themselves. Former Racing Bulls team principal Franz Tost reckons that the Drivers' Championship and Constructors' Championship will be completely over for Red Bull unless the upgrades they're bringing this weekend make a difference. It has to be right, the Austrian said, and that also applies to Ferrari and Mercedes. Otherwise, this World Championship is over, and McLaren will continue to dominate the rest of the season. Then, even an exceptional driver like Max Verstappen won't be able to do anything. Over the past 12 months, the drop in Red Bull's performance has been pretty shocking. The departure of key technical figures such as Rob Marshall and Adrian Newey, and the off-track turmoil involving team principal Christian Horner have all likely contributed to the challenging development from the RB20 into this season's car, the RB21. The new floor in Miami, which was just fitted to Verstappen's car, was the first part of a much larger package which aims to bring better balance and more downforce to the current car. Part of Red Bull's plan to start closing the gap to McLaren is a brand new brake configuration and some revised cooling for it as well, which is presumably going to be taking very heavy inspiration from McLaren's brakes. Apparently, Red Bull have been working on these new brakes since the Australian Grand Prix when they first got a look at what McLaren were doing. If the new brakes work, then Red Bull will be able to push the tyres harder, and they'll be able to push them for much longer as well than they have done previously. However, Helmut Marko has also said that catching McLaren won't be easy. Such a step is difficult to catch up. This weekend's Grand Prix will be a big first for the Ferrari team. Lewis Hamilton is going to be taken to the track in front of the Tifosi for the first time in Ferrari Red. I know he did that pre-season test, but that doesn't really count. This time he's actually going to be racing. It will be an exciting occasion for the Italian fans who will be out in force to see the man who is supposed to be the second coming of Michael Schumacher. Perhaps, more importantly to how their season is going to go, is the appearance of some upgrades for the prancing horse. Ferrari have only managed to achieve 1 podium finish so far this season, and that came courtesy of Charles Leclerc back in Jeddah. But the team are expecting many more to start coming in the future. They are counting on the FIA's stricter flexible bodywork tests, which are coming in at the Spanish Grand Prix, to try and make some headway into the teams in front of them. But they can't just rely on that. Upgrades are going to be really important as well. At Imola, they're going to start introducing a new upgrade package, which is going to be finished at the Barcelona Grand Prix in a couple of races' time. The goal is to address some of the car's flaws, including the rear end's lack of downforce, which causes a lot of instability. It's that instability that has been particularly impacting Lewis Hamilton's confidence under braking and on corner entry, which the team have been using to explain his deficit to Leclerc so far. Ferrari has a bigger problem than just a bit of instability under braking though. In Miami, they were the 5th slowest team in the race, finding themselves behind the Williams of Alex Albon, and if Carlos Sainz hadn't been driving with damage all race, they probably would have finished behind him as well. The Imola upgrade will be focused on the rear brakes, just like Red Bull's. The team are looking for better brake cooling performance like everyone else is at the moment, as well as improvements in the aerodynamic load that the rear end is producing. If the experiment at Imola works, then Ferrari will bring the larger package after the technical regulations have changed at the Spanish Grand Prix, which they hope will help them extract the performance that they're seeing in the factory, which at the moment isn't being replicated in the real world. The team don't want to bring any substantial upgrades at the moment because they might not match up to the new stiffer wings, which are going to be required after the technical regulation change. While Ferrari and Red Bull seasons have both been disappointing so far, no team has underperformed worse than Aston Martin. Expectations for the team will remain high considering the brand new facility they have and the amount of investment that's coming from team owner Lawrence Stroll. But if it weren't for Lance Stroll making the most of the challenging conditions at the season opener in Australia, the team would be dead last in the Constructors' Championship. In Miami, Stroll and Alonso did finish dead last, and with it died any real hopes for a decent season this year. At this weekend's Imola Grand Prix, Fernando Alonso's car is going to receive the first upgrades of the year, the first of 3 that are expected over the next 3 races. The improvements that are coming to his Aston Martin do come with a catch though. The truth is that the parts that he's going to be receiving for the AMR25 are not exclusive to this car, they're actually tests for next season's car. The team want to know that if the work they're doing in the factory at Silverstone is going to match up to what happens in the real world. It's therefore important that these parts, made with the brand new wind tunnel, work correctly on this year's car. They will still offer some performance improvement, but a large part of what they're being put on the car for is to make sure that the new wind tunnel offers reliable data. Aston Martin boss Andy Cowell confirmed that they will not be sure of the new parts until they're tested on the Italian circuit, and if they don't work as expected, then they might decide to take them off. We could have some new parts at Imola. We'll have time to understand if it's the right thing or not. Aston Martin wants to improve how they're doing this season to avoid a completely disastrous year, but that's not really the priority. Far from it, actually. The team has practically all its resources focused on next season already, with the aim of placing Aston Martin among the top teams in the championship and fighting for a world championship in the new regulations. The tests they're doing are all focused on the AMR26, and any of those tests and those new parts that they can fit to the AMR25 they will do, to make sure they can cross-reference the data that they're getting in the factory with what's happening on track, and any performance gains they get from that is kind of just an added bonus. The chances of these new parts failing is pretty high. Aston Martin is still in the very early stages of using this new wind tunnel, and there's a reasonable chance that it's not calibrated properly or they're not reading the data properly, and these parts are not going to perform how expected. So these initial tests are basically being used to calibrate the machine to make sure it can be used to its optimum potential next season. What do you think though? Are any of the teams going to be able to close the gap to McLaren? Or are you expecting Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri to utterly dominate in Imola again? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and until next time, drive safe and bye for now.